Hello and welcome to the Builders Podcast. Today we're excited to have Boban Ljubinoski, a product manager at Klarna, joining us. Boban brings a wealth of experience with over 10 years of direct and indirect involvement in building products in both the food, tech and fintech industries. His career spans American and European companies, providing him with a unique perspective on the differences and similarities in product management across these regions. Today we'll dive deep into Boban's journey to becoming a product manager, explore current trends in the field, and aim to inspire future builders and aspiring product managers. Welcome, Boban. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us. How's it going?
It's going great. Hi, Lee, and thank you for the introduction and thank you for inviting me. Hello to all your viewers as well. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story, discuss anything and everything product management related, and hopefully also inspire others to get to solve problems, considering like this challenging and rewarding career. I actually took a look at the previous episodes very quickly, and I want to congratulate you for giving people of various backgrounds and seniority levels to speak and share their story, which I thought was great.
Very kind.
So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And yes, a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. Now, let's get started by talking about a little bit about your background and kind of inspiration, what kind of led you to where you are today. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a product manager? What happened before Klarna, for example?
Yeah, so just a quick introduction first about myself. So I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Currently calling from my home office. Lots of excitement currently in Germany. There's the European Championships, which are happening right now. Yeah. Yes, we got lots of fans around. Finally, some good weather after a few weeks of cold and rain. I'm actually not from Berlin. I was born and raised, and for the majority of my life lived in Macedonia, in a very small town. I enjoy yoga and cycling outside of working. Huge fan of warm weather, something we don't get a lot in Germany as much as we get in Southern Europe. And currently I keep very busy with my MBA, which I am almost at the end with, and I'm looking forward for that extra free time once I'm done.
Fantastic.
How did I become a product manager? I think it's a very interesting story. And after graduating about 10 years ago, like many students fresh out of university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I traveled for a while, and when I started looking for a new job, the options were very limited. I think I told you, very small town, not a lot of options. It's actually funny to think how I was considering accounting or trading organizations. Thinking about it, my career could have been very different. Fortunately, actually, it was my mom suggested that I should take a customer support role in what she called an internet company. I had no idea what it was. It's a great story. So it turned out to be an American food tech company called Slice, which was offering online ordering with a 360 tech support for small restaurants. It's a mission that I actually thought it was worth fighting for, because if you know that like big food tech companies, delivery companies, are actually charging small restaurants a huge fee for online ordering, and Slice was had really friendly pricing, and was a great place for both to work at, but also a really good product for both restaurants and consumers, right? So I was very skeptical to take a role at an internet company, but it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. The job completely shaped my career. And it's not an understatement to say that it's important that your first real job is at a company that you love, a company that you're proud to work for. As I said, I didn't start as a product manager immediately. I was working in customer support, which is a role that taught me how to develop empathy for customer problems, how to talk to customers, how to listen as well, which is very important. And these are all skills that are important in product management as well, right? And these first steps had a huge impact on my role. And I think also having great mentors as well. So it was kind of all coming together kind of unintentionally as I as I developed into a product management role over several years.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So you essentially have your mum to thank for getting into
Every day.
the tech world. Fantastic. What a story. And what was it? How did that happen with your mum? What she didn't quite understand, presumably, like what was meant by an internet company, but she had probably heard some things. So like, how did what did she say to you at that time?
Yeah, I was looking for a job, and I was kind of brainstorming with her. Right, I was traveling a bit after graduating. Now it was the time to get a job. So the conversation, it was like a known company in the community that my mom heard of, and she was like, "Why don't you get a job there?" And I had no idea what they were doing. I know it was something food related. I did not know it was a tech company. I also did not know that I even want to work in tech.
Right.
So I kind of went with it, and it was a turning point in where I am today in Berlin, kind of like the tech capital of Europe. So it was all kind of shaped in those few conversations about 10 years ago.
Fantastic. And so back in, 2018, you made a significant career switch, right? From, you said, customer service and tech support to product management, basically. What motivated this change in particular? I mean, now I think about it, I seem to remember reading a report, it was some time ago actually, about career switches and switches specifically into product management roles. They were really on the rise. So obviously highlights growing appeal and opportunities in the field. But what motivated you changing or kind of switching to product management?
Yeah, so it was an irregular career path. After working in customer support, I developed certain skills for finding issues and being able to communicate about those issues with the developers, kind of like the basics of product management, right? And interestingly, it was again someone else who noticed my potential again. It wasn't me. So I have a guardian angel all the time. By 2018, the company already had a few product managers, already had a director of product. When I started, there were basically just a couple of developers, right? And it was then the director of product and the engineers I worked with from the start that suggested that I become a product manager. At the time, I was already managing people by the age of 26. I was already passionate about technology, about solving problems, but I hadn't actually officially considered the next step in my career. And as I had done before, I said yes. I tend to always say yes when somebody thinks that I will do a good job at something. And officially started as a product manager about 6 years ago, right? That's 2018. The transition required a lot of learning, of course. I knew a lot about software development. I had to learn how to set goals and create a roadmap and communicate those goals to the stakeholders. I had to learn how to say no. As I told you, I like to say yes. and also connect the roadmap to the business strategy. So it was a lot of a lot of learning, and still is a lot of learning.
Yes, yeah. Super interesting. And you touched upon, a few challenges there and these kind of, learning new skills and everything. What were some of the, the biggest challenges and indeed some of the biggest rewards that you encountered during this transition, would you say?
So as a product manager, the biggest challenge is the constant context switching, in my opinion, and never-ending meetings. For example, you need to be able to have a good quality conversation with the developers, analysts, marketing, and then you also need to provide feedback on design and all within like 2 hours. Like, it's constant context switching. You need to be able to explain certain goals that are not met during a review, and then attend a big sales call with a big company where you have to support the salespeople with selling the product you're building. This makes it very hard to focus, very hard to build expertise in one specific area, which others have a higher chance of doing so because other competences can actually focus more. But also helps developing leadership and soft skills, right? You can only do that if you actually have that constant switching and pressure. But it took years of working to be able to optimize my schedule, to find how can I spend time on the most impactful tasks. And for example, I really enjoy spending time with commercial teams. I really enjoy going to sales calls myself, and also I enjoy selling my own product as well and learning from that. But generally, like many day-to-day challenges, there's no also hiding in the fact, Lee, that the last 2 years have been difficult. There has been a lot of layoffs. There has been a lot of pressure to do more with less, but also a great learning how to be hacky and creative. But there's definitely a lot of like ambiguity and uncertainty, something that just hovers above you all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And how do you deal with that on a daily basis, would you say?
You just get used to it. I don't think there is. You have to learn how to shut down certain factors that possibly your product can be shut down overnight. That you can be overnight working on something else. That someone from your team might leave. So those are the uncertainties that, after happening to you 5-6 times, you just get used to them and you just live with it.
Yep. No, fair enough. And you said about potentially like a product being shut down, discontinued, whatever you want to call it. What is the product that you're working on? I believe you're lead product manager for the sign in with Klarna product. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Yeah. And this is like a social login product, isn't it? Offering like a password free personalized shopping experience. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Tell us a little bit about that product. How does the product work? What kind of problems is it solving? Yeah, and what problems are your team solving essentially?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So I think we already discussed that I work at Klarna, and working at Klarna has been an amazing experience over the past like 2.5 years for me. It's a well-known brand. Have you heard of Klarna?
Absolutely. I'm based in Sweden as well, so
that answers it.
Coincidental.
I love traveling to Sweden, to Stockholm. I get to do that a lot working at Klarna. It's an amazing place.
Impressive journey since there.
Yes.
What, 2012 was it? Or
yeah. So working for a company as Klarna is a privilege, and being able to engage with senior leadership also in the vision that they have for the world of commerce has been really a step up for me from my previous job, eye-opening as a product leader. So as you know, Klarna is known as a provider of flexible payment options during checkout, where you have the option to choose between like different ways of paying depending on your preferences. But Klarna is also a licensed bank. Established a bank established like 6 years ago, massive scale and reach. Are also very interesting. Like, our customers are more financially responsible than the average credit card users, with a far lesser debt ratio, and which makes Klarna a product for everyone, which you know very well in Sweden, loved by everyone, right? And as well in Germany. But to get to the point of signing with Klarna. Klarna doesn't offer only payment products, but we also offer products that help them convert more customers during the purchase journey. And we know that a key part of converting and retaining more users is being able to quickly get customers to sign in and sign up. We know we usually do that with like Google and Apple. Sign in with Klarna is a bit different, makes account registration faster because we are able to pre-fill the whole checkout at the end and not just create an account. And also make sure that we give the merchant verified data that they can trust. And it's really a social login designed for shopping experiences. That makes it a little bit different than signing with Google and Apple, and better.
Super. And what would you say? What is there to sell? Is there a typical day for you as a product manager at Klarna? And if there is, what would you say a kind of typical day looks like?
That's a great question. I think I've changed what my day looks like depending on the stage of the product itself. So when you are in an expansion phase, or you want to launch in multiple markets, you definitely spend more time selling and going over and talking to customers. And while you are in the phase of testing before you launch, you definitely spend more time like testing and trying out the product and working with the developers. Right now, we are in the phase of expanding and selling and offering the product to every merchant out there. So the day-to-day for me definitely looks like checking on sales numbers, checking on product performance numbers, checking on different tools that we have to look at how consumers are engaging with the product. So I think that mostly what the day-to-day looks like, and I still get to spend some time with the developers, even though they're very self-sufficient. They don't need me at all.
Right. And how big is the team that you're leading?
The team is, I believe, 8 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
8 people,
Nice.
and we also work with other teams that kind of do bits and pieces of the product itself. It's kind of very connected, and working with a bunch of different teams.
Yeah, so you got that cross collaboration with other kind of product teams, essentially. Nice, very nice. And I'd like to talk in a minute a little bit more about the kind of the product itself, this kind of sign in with Klarna. But I'd like also before to kind of just get your opinion on one part of kind of mentorship, because I'm aware that you have some experiences with kind of membership and the crucial role that they can play right in professional development. So can you share some of your experiences in terms of mentorship and the role they've played in your professional development?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely one of my favorite topics, and mentors have played a big role in my career, just like my mom. So I was fortunate to actually have great mentors early in my career who often saw potential in me that I wasn't aware, and I lacked the confidence at the beginning to actually explore certain areas. And the mentors played a tremendous amount of trust in me, giving me the freedom to make changes, supporting me if I made mistakes, and this trust and support allowed me to grow rapidly in a very safe environment. I already mentioned I started my career in customer support, and my first 2 mentors were 2 of the original engineers who saw potential in me and transitioned me into a somewhat an engineering support role. I told you that there were no product managers at that time. So I was kind of playing a role where I would bridge the gap between different teams who were customer support and sales teams, and the developers who actually needed time to focus, and they did not want to reply to any bug tickets. So that's how I started. And that was the first time I could actually organize my day and focus on the most impactful areas myself. I get to make the decision. The mentors were always responsive, teaching me how software works, allowing me to then help them to focus on the work. And this experience was invaluable in shaping my career and development as a product manager. So I would definitely recommend that people find a company that actually has mentors and people who have enough time, because everyone is just so busy these days. So sometimes no one has the time for the newcomer. But finding that right sweet spot where someone can spend 1 hour with you here and there is very great. Is very good.
That's super. And I believe you've worked for an American company before as well, and also kind of now obviously working for a European company. Now everyone knows there are kind of there can be vast differences in working culture, but how have you kind of experienced these differences, and what have you noticed between the kind of two?
So for me, switching from an American to a European, specifically a Swedish company, right? One that you're very proud of as a Swedish. It was and continues to be a significant challenge. American companies often have a more defined structure with quicker decision making processes and a huge emphasis on speed versus quality. This is generally not the case in Europe. The pace is generally slower. And I remember from my days at Slice that the speed to market was a keyword that we used to say so frequently. And additionally, there is a much greater emphasis on compliance and data protection in Europe, which means it just takes more time to evaluate a product before launching it. That doesn't mean that launching a product in the US allows you to completely disregard compliance, right? But there is more of a we used to call it a do it and say sorry later type of culture in the US, and which I really miss. It really fosters innovation. And due to the importance of the speed to market in the US, would always opt in for third-party software when you're building products, right? You sometimes need tools and software. In Europe,
as opposed then to kind of building it yourself, right?
Yes, exactly, right. So in Europe, I see many companies building non-essential software themselves, and which I really dislike. This is where I think like you have to focus your engineering resources on the things that matter, the things that the core product. Like you cannot just go and build things on your own that somebody has already perfected already. So I also prefer the American competitive model, right? Like which where customers have more power, which means that the customer power holds you into a higher standard, because it's easy to get customers, it's easy to lose them in the US. Churn is a much bigger problem, customer churn in the US, because it's so easy to switch to a competitor. In contrast, European companies often prefer to lock consumers in contracts, which I really dislike as a consumer as well. I don't like to sign a contract, a 2-year contract to go to the gym, right? That just makes no sense to me. I still cannot understand it after 2.5 years here in Germany. What I slowly learned over the past 2.5 years, so working in Europe, is the value of the collaborative approach, like asking everyone's opinion. It's more human. You value people a lot more. The European style has influenced me to basically appreciate the perspectives from everyone and involve stakeholders in decision-making processes. It's not everything about speed. And all these factors together have impacted how I think about product management, right? I would use a different way of building and managing products in Europe versus the US based on these factors. But overall, I think there's pros and cons in both ways. And I try to just take the best out of both.
No, very, very well put. I think, like you say, there are always pros and cons, right? But it's I think you're in a good place where you can draw on that experience from both sides, right? So super. But let us talk just a little bit more about the product. Sign in with Klarna. I'm interested in terms of the user experience, the adoption, and the ease of use, the integration, and stuff like this. So just a question about kind of adoption, really. Like the sign in with Klarna offers this personalized shopping experience, like I said, right? How would you say users are kind of responding to this feature? What impact has it had on engagement and satisfaction? How many users are there? Do you know of the product?
Yeah, so the way that we developed signing with Klarna, there are a lot of social logins out there. Actually, there's so many. Signing with Amazon, signing with PayPal. There's a lot of them out there. Obviously, the most common ones are Google and Apple, those ones that we see everywhere. What we wanted to develop is a product that is designed for a very specific niche problem. Mostly, as much as social sign-ins are everywhere, they're not as much added into e-commerce companies like retail companies. There's obviously a big difference between Asia and the Pacific versus Europe. Like the Asian companies are leading the effort on offering as many social sign-ins as possible, while, for example, in Europe, H&M still has like a traditional sign-up flow where you have to fill out everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
So what we noticed is that no one wants it anymore. So we wanted to build something that you can log in with your existing account and get all your data pre-filled and get your experience personalized as well on the merchant side. So you can, even after signing in, you can see relevant products for you.
Yep.
And then once you go to pay and you want to check out, you don't have to fill anything anymore. Your billing, your shipping address, everything will be filled out, and you just go ahead and pay. So that's what makes the product different than the regular social sign-ins, is that we think about the whole journey, not just getting you to sign in or sign up. We think
Right.
about what you're going to see after you sign in. And then you're going to go to checkout and you will want to pay. So we think about all of that, and our product is designed to optimize all those steps together.
And then ultimately kind of increase very, very important kind of metrics for companies, conversion rates. So there's this kind of conversion boost with it, right?
Yes, exactly. It's a conversion boost for the merchants.
Yes. Yeah. And as far as I'm aware, when I've kind of tested it myself, like the integration, like, or the kind of, all of this is kind of designed to be really simple and easy to use, straightforward, right? What feedback have you received as a team, or indeed as a company, of course, from the merchants regarding the ease of integrating this feature into their existing platforms? Anything there? Because I read somewhere about kind of onboarding, this feature kind of allowing customers to onboard 6 times faster than with, like, your traditional kind of email and password authentication, right? So I'm just interested to kind of, what feedback have you received from merchants basically using this?
Yeah, so we are in a early rollout phase. We still have about 1,000 merchants live at the moment. That gives you sufficient information to understand, are we actually able to solve the problem, and are we able to make an impact or not?
Yeah.
We are definitely getting feedback that the main KPI is being addressed. Yeah, so we are also definitely getting feedback that that the whole journey is kind of tied together better than before. And the feedback has been that the personalization part of the feature is something that could be a very important feature in the future, especially knowing that kind of building a personalized experience is really a big lift. And we've managed to find a much simpler way to solve this than having to do all the lifting yourself, or having to like store any data yourself. So we found a way, how do we make this a 1 to 2 weeks per platform kind of integration, sometimes more, sometimes less. That's always very subjective. So far the feedback is good. There are a few things that we are trying to address. There's a need for sharing some specific data points that we are working on that will even further speed up the whole journey. But overall, we are cruising. Like we get lots of interest, lots of good press, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to see the product live everywhere.
Really nice. So really interesting feedback from the merchants. And in terms of like benefits for these merchants, we've spoken about, obviously the conversion boost. You were talking a little bit about kind of personalization and how important that is going to be. What are some of the other kind of key benefits that merchants have experienced by adopting signing with Klarna, or that you hope merchants will be experiencing?
Yeah, so we're seeing basically sign in with Klarna being a acquisition channel of new customers that never interacted with that merchant. Usually, what happens is Klarna is at the end as a payment option,
right,
while never at the beginning as a login option. So what happens is that once a merchant adds sign in with Klarna to their login page, consumers know that there is Klarna payments at the end, and that is allowing them to kind of make a decision on proceeding a lot sooner rather than later. So what we are also seeing is merchants saying that, hey, we are getting new consumers, and also consumers are not only signing in, but they also have the intent to purchase. Right. So bringing in consumers with the intent to purchase is also one of the things that we're pitching and selling, of course, and that's very important. It's creating an account. It's not enough. Obviously, you have to find ways. How do you get consumers all the way to the finish line, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I also assume that, like, when you've been developing this product, obviously there's been kind of a heavy focus, certainly on kind of the mobile experience, right? Because of the impact of, or like growing impact of kind of mobile commerce, right? So it growing rapidly, more and more people being able to or wanting to kind of, purchase on the go or from their mobile. So how would could you talk a little bit about kind of how it's been built, or how signing with Klarna kind of enhances the mobile kind of shopping experience? Has this been a part of the kind of the product strategy here at all?
Yeah. So when we developed signing with Klarna, we obviously thought of mobile first. I think that's what most companies do these days. We have mobile SDKs for both iOS and Android, and we pay a great deal of attention to developing and improving the mobile experience. And especially when we look at issues, we always prioritize mobile as well. Actually, mobile is over 90% of the volume, so you kind of have no choice. Yes, and there are definitely things that you should keep in mind. There's the smaller screens and how the product looks like on a smaller screen. I think that's like the most common one. I think there's differences between developing for Android and iOS. There's some steps that are in Android that are not in iOS and vice versa. So ultimately, when you want to improve the performance of the product, you have to be looking at all these small things. There's no silver bullet that you can fix one thing that gets the product to convert a lot better, but you have to fix all these dozens of small things here and there.
Yeah. We wish there was that silver bullet, right?
That would have been great.
No, indeed. But talking a little bit about trends, product management trends, innovations, but also kind of market trends. There's like this increasing emphasis on personalization in e-commerce. How do you see features like signing with Klarna kind of shaping the future of online shopping? Obviously, you've mentioned kind of signing in with other products. This is nothing new in that sense, but how do you see it kind of shaping the future of online shopping?
Yeah, I mean, the trends and the keywords and the buzzwords use personalization, AI is everywhere these days, right? Someone is doing a good job at it, someone not. But everyone is trying to do it. And I think those are like kind of like the most obvious trends, right? But there is more for sure. So product management has indeed evolved significantly. It's very different when I started my career. There is a much greater focus on product-led growth and willingness to pay as key strategies over just selling and just hiring a huge sales force to sell your product, right? Companies are expecting that the product itself to be a revenue driver, as I said, not the sales personnel. And this shift puts more pressure on product managers as their roles have expanded beyond just delivering products, right? 10 years ago, product managers were cool because they possessed a blend of hard and soft skills. They were very knowledgeable in different topics. However, the landscape changed completely. The emphasis today is on consolidation, on merging roles, prioritizing profitability over growth, which is very different because you remember it was only a few years ago where companies were prioritizing growth over revenue, and now everyone suddenly wants to be profitable, right?
Yes,
So that's a stark contrast compared to before. But companies want to consolidate resources. I think I touched upon layoffs and cutting costs. And roles such as product marketing and user researchers and product operations and project managers even are merging into product management. A product manager should do everything these days, for sure. Organizations are just becoming more flat. There's less middle management and often eliminating middle management entirely. Following obviously by example set by Tesla, there's a trend towards having engineering managers oversee product teams. While like a few years ago, every product team has a product manager, now that's not the case anymore. And companies tend to have fewer product managers than before. I think I already said at the beginning, obviously, integration of AI into every single thing, every conceivable product out there is a trend. There's success and not success. Klarna is a huge success when it comes to AI implementation. It's one of the things that I'm super proud of. And the whole executive team is very proud of the way that we are using AI in day-to-day, in products, in everywhere.
And how are you using it, would you say, in kind of, in day-to-day and everywhere as well? I mean, how are you using it to kind of enhance the customer shopping experience?
Yeah, so we're definitely using AI to understand our customers a lot better than before.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We're using AI to support our customers better than before with
Yes.
less investments.
Yep.
Klarna has a one of the biggest examples of success at Klarna was our chatbot, which is
Mm.
obviously like the most common example of AI these days, but
Right.
ours actually works really good. I
Mm.
have to say
And
that.
it had like a significant impact in terms of like, people being let go. You were talking about like, there's always this kind of risk associated with,
Huge
now and
impact.
currently. But it had this huge impact where there were a lot of kind of layoffs, right? Yeah.
So huge impact on consolidating resources
Mm.
without even having an impact on the experience. Like the bot is smart, can solve things for you.
Mm.
I hope you will not have a problem with any of your Klarna purchases, but if you do, it will solve your problem.
Mm. Mm.
But we also use AI in just understanding our customers better. I mentioned personalization, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The only way to do that is by trying to understand different inputs and trying to like then combine them into what Lee likes.
Mm.
And
Mm.
your interests are different in the summer versus the winter, so all these things are
Yeah.
very helpful. Um, 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 AI is very helpful when it comes to all of these problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Understanding the user better, their kind of intent, where they are in their kind of buyer journey or user journey, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Um, very, very interesting. And to talk a little bit about challenges and successes as well. You spoke about kind of the product manager kind of role, more and more merging a lot of kind of aspects or kind of responsibilities from different roles as well over time. Could you just tell us a little bit about some of the biggest challenges you've faced in your role as a product manager and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so I think the main challenge is to be able to like set your own schedule towards like what has the most impact.
Right.
It's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to go into calls that have no value.
Mm.
There's sometimes 2 or 3 calls at the same time that you get to pick and choose. So like
Mm.
being able to organize your schedule has helped a lot. Block time for certain tasks, block
Yeah.
time for and set goals such as I am going to have 3 sales conversations this week, and try to stick to your goals.
Mm.
Sometimes even put those goals on a roadmap that I'm going to have as many calls.
Yeah.
So I think that mostly helps. It definitely helps to like stay curious and open.
Mm-hmm.
To go into calls and listen instead of talk. I think that I found it very helpful to just listen and listen and
Mm-hmm.
listen.
Mm-hmm.
And But other than that, I think the main challenges are just generally shifts into how companies view product managers and staying on top of that and being able to uh, go and progress in your career while having this like ambiguity about, hey, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Asking
Yeah.
for feedback. I think those are generally like the challenges, but it can all be mitigated by like staying engaged and being
Mm-hmm.
passionately curious about technology
Mm.
and people and how technology and people can be combined.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
found it very helpful with all of these challenges.
Really interesting. Can you also discuss like in terms of success or successes? Can you share like a product development success story that you're particularly proud of? It might be with the kind of current product or product team that you're leading, or might be a previous one.
Yeah, one of the products that I was also one of the hardest ones to develop, and one of the ones that I'm the most proud of, is when we developed a point of sale system for small restaurants
Mm.
in the US. That was part of my previous job, where we had to integrate a new payments provider and work to ensure that both the online payments and the offline payments, like the in-store ones, are
Mm-hmm.
going to be all combined into a single payout.
Okay.
Uh, and that was really cool. So it was a product where you have a restaurant, you are live on our platform, you use our POS, you're live on our iOS and Android app on our website, you have a
Mm-hmm.
portal, and you process purchases, and then we are able to pay you at the end of the day knowing the complexity of money movements and settlement times, that we were able to like put that all together in a compliant way in a rather short period of time and deploy a system that was really designed to support local pizzerias in the US. That's something that I'm very proud of, and I'm still keeping track on how the product is developing, even though I'm not working there anymore. It's kind of like my baby that I
was going
like.
to say is
I like to keep an eye on things.
Yeah, never let it go. Nice. Is there a recent technology integration that you're excited about at Klarna and on the product that you're working on?
Actually, I can talk about something else that I'm like very excited about, sure. Something that I'm very passionate about. So obviously, it's very hard not to be excited with the recent developments in AI, and I think that's probably like the most common answer you're gonna get from everyone. These days.
But we like that as well.
But sometimes, but as a product manager. I cannot say that my excitement is to just work with ChatGPT. Product managers, we tend to focus on the problem, not on the solution. What I'm actually very passionate about is education and building the future of education. So I'm currently working on my MBA. Most of it is done online. I learned how to value a good education a lot in the past, and definitely I would love a world where the next generations can be just better prepared than I was, growing up in a small town and all of that, and having the lack of access to like high quality education that I had. I think it can be mitigated these days, and I can see my career taking a step into that direction. I think online education has a lot of potential. Virtual reality in online education has a lot of potential. Any type of education, even, I don't know, learning how to do a surgery using virtual reality can have like a huge potential. I think we can make education just affordable, accessible to students, even in remote areas, small towns. Students with disabilities as well can have access to education. This is something that I'm very excited about, and generally like also excited about the technology that would power all of that together.
Really, really exciting area. Do you think that kind of online or remote kind of learning experience could ultimately replace the on-premise or the bricks and mortar universities, that kind of classroom environment? Do you think it ultimately could? Do you think it should?
I think that's a great question. So it kind of goes against my principles that I tend to prefer in-person collaboration, especially with my team. I also go to the office as much as possible. And especially when it comes to solving a real tough problem, at least today, nothing beats in-person collaboration. Does it have the potential to get better? Absolutely. Can it fully replace in-person learning? I doubt. But again, it could really change in the next few years. Like technology is moving really fast. I do think virtual reality, so it has really a lot of potential in education. I think it's not as developed as it should be at the moment, but I think both will go hand in hand very well. And if this was if this type of education was just more available during the pandemic, like younger generations who just had to stay at home for 2 years and did not have the interactions that somebody of a young age needs when they develop, like that, they probably could have been mitigated at that time, but it just wasn't there and
wasn't available.
Mostly it was Zoom classes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that maybe kind of accelerated the the fact, or like the acknowledgement that there is that kind of gap in the market, let's say, or that kind of at least there's going to be that someone's going to be kind of moving this forward. Well, people are, and I think it's like you say, it's hard to beat that in-person collaboration or kind of learning experience or whatever it might be. But I guess it all depends on how good we get when it comes to virtual reality, but augmented reality and everything like that, and how quickly we get there, right? No, it's really interesting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. But you were talking a little bit earlier when talking about product management in general about how it's important to ensure that you're kind of the team's focusing on what matters, the kind of the core areas of a product, what really kind of impact the main KPIs, right? How do you approach developing, or like how do you approach a product strategy that aligns with a business's overall goals? For example, Klarna's.
So that's a great question, Lee. And I don't think I have a straight answer to that. I think on the day to day, you just have to remind yourself that what are you actually solving for? It's so easy to get distracted. What I usually do is I have a one-page document which I have pinned all the time, and it has the company goals, company mission and vision, and what my product will do to support that. And I try to say it as much as possible and remind my developers on meetings. And I think it's also a lot about like surrounding yourself with like great people and just telling them that, hey, like you're smart, you're smarter than me, and keep reminding them that like we can actually do great things together. So it's really hard to stay focused. You can get easily distracted by the solution itself, that you easily forget what is the problem and what are the KPIs. So you kind of have to remind yourself every day, and I don't think there's anything else you can do besides that.
No, it's a very kind of valid point. I think from personal experience as well, it's easy to get bogged down or kind of think straight away for a solution when really you want to kind of unravel the problem to begin with and consider, okay, well, what business impact does this have, and what is the kind of impact of the potential solution later on as well. So I think, it's very interesting.
A good way to like do that would be like using like first principles and like really questioning whether we should be doing that or not. I do encourage my team to like question all the decisions I make. And they sometimes overdo it. Sometimes they don't do it enough. But generally, it helps that there's someone else keeping an eye and asking the hard questions. And even if I'm so excited about something, someone will say like, "But should we really do that?" And that is really helpful.
No, I can completely agree. Otherwise, you don't want your teams to kind of end up as these kind of service desks, right? Where they
just take tickets.
Like, just take a ticket, add it to the backlog. We'll ship it at some point. No, super. But what would you say? You also spoke earlier about cross collaboration, across these different teams. What would you say are some of the best practices that you follow for this kind of effective collaboration across teams? Is there anything in particular?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Slack as a tool. I think Slack is an amazing tool that saves time from going into unnecessary meetings. We use different methods of ensuring that we are in sync without having to constantly go in meetings to try to realign. And we do that by very open and transparent Slack communication. There's almost like nothing that is like closed communication in the company. I'm a really big fan of, I don't know, the whole company getting to read the stand-up updates.
Right.
So that really enhances collaboration. You have a stand-up that everyone writes what they're working on, and then someone else jumps in and says, well, you should not be doing that. Usually in the past, everything has been done in like a closed team manner, while now we're doing it in a much more open way, where there's frequent updates from the team about issues. There's going into other teams' channels that are also open and transparent, and having like a healthy collaboration, which is great for staying aligned and also work together. Everything is obviously intertwined. Like you don't do anything yourself these days, but also it saves a lot of time from going into meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a kind of the dread of having too many meetings booked in your calendar. It's a fine skill, saying no to a meeting, or realizing, actually, you know what, we don't need a meeting for this. We can actually take it async. We can chat about it on Slack or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you make a good point as well about these open channels as well. I think it's super important to have the open policy so that that knowledge and the information is kind of shared, right?
Yeah, it is. It's been a big leap towards compared to how we were working in the past, where it was really closed channels, closed stand-ups. No one knows what our teams are doing, and now it's different. Like I feel I have a good idea of what others are working on, and I don't need to go into a document or anything like that.
Right. No, indeed. Yeah, talking a little bit about kind of future, vision and stuff like this. I'm just eager to get your opinion on this. There was a very kind of recent purchase of Klarna Checkout, right? This is a kind of big in the news in Sweden very recently. Yeah, recently purchased by BLQ Invest, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this won't kind of impact your role per se. It's a different product area. But are you able to give your thoughts on the acquisition? I mean, yeah, like I said, very recent, but naturally acquisitions often lead to kind of increased investment, across the product teams, right? R&D and everything. So, yeah, any idea what might be on the horizon? Not just there, but for your
Yes.
team as well.
So Klarna Checkout was such an important product for Klarna in the Nordics, especially. However, it wasn't something that we saw as the future for Klarna globally.
Right.
Obviously, we have our payment product, which we call One Klarna, which is what we are going with, like a global standard offering. You don't want to go to an area where you have, I don't know, one product for the Nordics and one product for the rest of the world. So I think it was kind of like a really good move because the product itself also deserves love.
Yeah.
And the new company that acquired the product, I'm sure that they will give it a lot more love and spend more resources on developing it in the future. Considering, as I said, it's super important product and with like a 40% adoption in the Nordics, I would say, which is huge.
Yeah.
So it was really a step towards the future, and obviously preparing Klarna for an IPO in the next period. I don't know when, and I don't think anyone does, but it's really consolidating the whole company towards a successful IPO, and I'm very proud of the decision that our leadership team made.
Yeah, really, really exciting. Yeah, it's big news here in Sweden. We're talking again about kind of signing with Klarna. Are there kind of any upcoming features or kind of releases that you're excited about?
Yes, actually, we are working on some very exciting discoveries at the moment. We're very committed, obviously, to continue rolling out the product, trying to find ways how do we make it even easier to launch, even without having to do any coding work from the merchant side, just going configure and launch. So I think that is like the main area, is how do we reduce the go live time for the merchant and get it rolled out everywhere. But there's some exciting things for sure. There's definitely a lot more going to happen in the personalization area, because that's what we hear is the most valuable part of the product. But also a lot more in the identification area as well. We could look into providing a way to identify consumers even in more regulated spaces as well.
Okay.
Klarna has a huge potential in this area as well. So that's definitely something that we're very excited about in terms of the product development.
Really interesting. And some more kind of general kind of questions here as well. It's related to these aspects as well. But how do you stay up to date with the kind of latest market trends related obviously to the product and the technological advancements? How do these trends influence your kind of product decisions?
So in terms of staying up to date, I like podcasts. I think that gives you a really good allows you to like stay up to date. I find that listening to our leadership team is very helpful, because they have connections and they speak to CEOs from other companies, and being able to like tell us more about like what's happening. I think it's very helpful. I keep an eye on Twitter, now X. I think there's a lot that you can consume in a very short amount of time. And yeah, I think that's it. Like, obviously, being in Berlin, you still get to talk to a lot of people as well. There's a lot of happening in the city. It's a big tech hub, and lots of meetups that help you, keep up to date.
Super, very good tips, I think. And your role at Klarna, how is this kind of contributing? How has it contributed to your kind of personal, your professional growth?
Yes, Klarna is a whole different monster. So there's a lot of expectations from people to be able to deliver, to be able to generate revenue, but also a lot of support. We have access to great tools that other companies don't have the luxury to. We have access to very premium AI technology, which is like custom made for us, that gives us full power to do to test out and try new products. So obviously, like, working with great people, like Klarna hires only the best. Being able to travel for work and being able to go to Sweden and being able to go to other places, I think that all comes together and has a huge impact on your career, on my career. And obviously, I'm just very looking forward to continue on this journey and go through the IPO together and get signing with Klarna Live everywhere in Sweden, so you can see it every day and then remember this podcast.
It's super, exciting times ahead. But what are your kind of future goals and aspirations in your role as a product manager?
Yeah, so I haven't.
Or will you be making another significant shift or switch somewhere else?
I think I told you about my passion about education and edtech.
Yes, exactly.
I'm still not there. I don't think that's going to be an immediate next step. What I haven't decided is whether I want to pursue a leadership role or I want to become a product manager who is like more an expert in a specific area. I guess why not both? I guess, but you at some point you have to choose, right? Like you really need to become like a really good at like one or two things. I don't think I'll be able to let go of like the hands-on approach. I just like spending time on things that are like day to day myself. So going into a leadership role where you really have to lead and inspire people. It's something I like, but I don't know if that will be enough to keep me busy and entertained. I really like kind of both sides. So yeah, it's really I don't know yet. I guess I'm still trying to find my way of like how do the next 10 years look like for me. I don't know that yet, but maybe a couple of years from now we talk again, and I'll have a better answer than this.
Or you might have even gone into that edtech journey by then as well.
Yeah.
Who knows? What advice would you give, Boban, to someone, an aspiring entrepreneur or anyone aspiring to become a product manager and in a tech-driven company like Klarna? What advice would you give to them?
I guess the same advice I would just give myself 10 years ago. Find a good mentor, ask a lot of questions, find a company which will allow you to try different things. Not every company does it these days, even less. And a company that will also allow you to be a product manager without asking you to, I don't know, do a lot of training for like a whole year or something like that. But I would really suggest that like the first company, the first mentor makes a huge difference. So going for a good company and not having some high expectations from the beginning, because it's much easier to switch internally once you get in the company. So I would even suggest taking a customer support role. I already said a few times, it makes a huge difference. Being able to like talk to people and hear them out and listen to them complaining, and then being able to show empathy towards their problems. So I would really like suggest that you take that first role, try out things, and you will know in the first couple of weeks if you like product management or not. That's how much it takes.
Yep. No, good. Yeah, good advice, I would say. Is there anything before I wrap up? Is there anything that you would like to add to this advice or to any other points?
No, I think I really enjoyed being here. I thank you for giving me the chance.
Thank
I
you.
hope
Thank you
that we
for
can
joining.
stay in touch and
Yes,
keep
indeed.
ourselves updated.
Yes.
And yeah, I'll be a big fan of your show and keep listening every week.
Thank you so much, Boban, for the kind words, and real pleasure to have you with us. But that wraps up another insightful episode of Builders, and a massive thank you to you, Boban Ljubinoski, for joining us today and sharing your valuable experiences, expertise in product management, but also stories of what came before as well. I really like the story of your mum's advice and how you followed it. Your biggest mentor.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. And to our listeners, we hope you found Boban's journey and insights as inspiring as we did. Don't forget to subscribe to Builders on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, keep innovating and keep building. We'll see you next time.